Welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance. In today's stories, how to get an aircraft boarding gate removed. Talk to the police if you want to, you'll never get a penny from us. $100, if you can hit me. And my yard is devaluing your house. And finally, I can only book over the phone. Okay. What is up guys, and I do hope you're well. If you enjoy Reddit stories, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe button, and maybe even that notification bell. And with that being said, let's get started. Our first story is from IMA 314 Lot. How to get an aircraft boarding gate removed. I've worked in aviation for nearly 20 years, from small airports to large commercial hubs. Like any industry, it's full of type A personalities and those promoted up to their respective level of incompetence. To protect those involved, I will not name the airport or the company I worked for. At the time this story occurred, I worked my way up in the company that is contracted to pump the fuel into the aircraft at one of the busiest airports in the US. My job was the supervisor in charge of fuel quality and safety adherences. The airport I worked at was growing. It went from middle of the pack to being top 10 for total operations in about 3 years. As such, there was, and still is, a lot of construction going on in order to have more gates and parking areas. This has involved in restripping the gates and adding more jet bridges onto the existing terminal. This usually is a pain, but works for the most part when there is only so much room to work with. For fueling, a hydrant system is commonly used, as faster and more convenient than having tanker trucks go up to every plane. Instead, a piece of equipment is staged at each gate and hooks up to a pit in the ground where the fuel is delivered directly from storage tanks and can be pumped onto the plane. These are large underground pipes, and once in place, rarely, if ever, moved. If you move your gate, the pit stays put and isn't as conveniently located as it first was. Might be too far away from the plane, might be under the plane, etc. When the airport authority decided to add a new gate at the end of the terminal, I was invited to the meeting thanks to my position. I guess I was just expected to just sit and nod or something, since every time I pointed out the new gate would put the pit under the jet or the wrong side, I was basically told, "We will make it work," or "This is the only way we can do it." After being shut down a few times, I gave up. 4 months of construction to expand the passenger waiting area and attach a jet bridge brings us to the first day of use. There is a ribbon cutting ceremony and the first arrival is brought to the gate. The fueler calls me because he doesn't like how he had to run his hoses and wants me to sign off on his solution. I pull up and see that the pit is under the left engine, 737 fuel panel is on the right wing. So he has to run the pit hose under the fuselage, which is full of passengers. This is a 3-inch inner diameter and is capable of delivering around 800 gallons per minute. Equipment slows down as appropriate per aircraft. Should a tug or anything hit that line, it will get bad, and fast. I say there's no way we can use that pit, and there isn't another one to choose from. I advise the airline, and they say, use the truck then. I responded, we can't, the jet is within 20 feet of a wall of the terminal, and we can't get a truck in front. If we're behind the jet, we'll block the taxi, and no aircraft are getting in or out of 8 gates. We can't safely fuel an aircraft at this gate. Well, you can imagine how this went over. Within 15 minutes, I have the highest level person in town for the airline, the airport duty manager, who brought a couple of airport police with him for some reason, my GM, and a manager for the baggage loaders all at the gate. I explain the issue and state that I will not allow fueling, as it isn't safe to run pressurised jet fuel under an aircraft, and that the pit is underneath the engine itself. Both of these violate numerous regulations. My GM looks at it and agrees. The airline head starts yelling and the duty manager says he will have the fire department come look at it, and if they say it's good, we're responsible to fuel. Fire battalion chief comes up, hears the issue and walks over to look. He then gets a rolling wheel measure and walks it from the pit to the building and then back to his truck. He comes back with a big red tag and puts the pit permanently out of service as it was too close to the building. He tells everyone that he sees there is no way to legally fuel at that gate as it's too close to the building and the fuel truck would block a fire escape path. For the next 2 months, the airline used the gate as an overflow with no fuel, meaning they had to bring the plane in with enough fuel already or fuel it on the cargo stand. Then, it was cordoned off and demolished and the old lines were restored. Not sure how many millions that cost, but it had to be a few. Oh, I can only imagine that guy's face. How smug he would have been after being shut down in that meeting so many times to be stood in front of all of his bosses. Absolutely epic. Our next story is from MRN. Talk to the police if you want to, you will never get a penny from us. 5 years ago, I was hit by a car while riding my bicycle. The driver turned across in front of me, pretty much into me, and I had absolutely nowhere to go. I hit the passenger door of the car and tumbled over the front of the car, still clipped into my pedals, taking it with me. The car was pretty damaged. I dented the door and scratched the paint in many places, ripped the door mirror off, smashed the glass, cracked the windshield, and dented/scratched the bonnet. My bicycle emerged fairly well. I think I broke its fall mostly. The front wheel was bent, the saddle torn, and pedals/bar tape damaged from hitting the road. I broke my collarbone and lost a lot of skin in various places that I hit the road. I trashed my helmet and shorts too. The driver said, "Sorry mate, I didn't see you," which was pretty obvious. The car was his daughter's, and he was taking his grandson out for ice cream. The poor little boy got covered in glass from the door window that exploded inwards when I hit it, but seemed to be okay. The driver gave me his phone number, and I took a photo of his driving license and insurance details along with a pile of photos at the scene. I crucially got the details of 2 witnesses too before I passed out from the pain. This all happened on a Friday. I got patched up at the hospital and my partner was able to get my bike home. Because of my broken collarbone, I was in a huge amount of pain while the doctors could figure out if it needed to be pinned or not over the weekend. On the Saturday morning, I called the driver and his phone went straight to voicemail. I'd taken a good look at my bike and figured it needed about £350 worth of parts. Wheel, forks, saddle, new bar tape, etc. and something for my cracked phone screen. I guessed £150. On the message I left him, I said that I wasn't sure if he wanted to pay for the parts or go through his insurance. His daughter called me back and shouted and swore at me for damaging her car. I explained that he turned across in front of me and it was his poor driving to blame. I mentioned that I was sitting on my sofa with a broken collarbone as a result of him and I wanted to get my bike fixed. "You'll never get a penny from me. Talk to the police if you want to. We will tell them that it was not my car. You will never get a penny from us." Okay, I can comply with that. I called the police station and they sent a constable down to see me. I carefully explained what happened and showed him the photos from the scene, the damage to my bicycle, phone, helmets and shorts, gave him the details of the witness and several cups of tea, and he advised me to get a solicitor on the case too, so I did just that. My bicycle insurance had legal aid cover, so I used it. Long story short, I had 3 surgeries on my shoulder over the next 18 months or so. The insurance details that the driver gave me was fake. The daughter's insurance company did not cover her father as a driver. The driver had 6 points on his license already, but crucially the police had found an insurance with another company that did cover him on her car, but only for third-party cover. He only admitted this when they threatened to charge him with driving without insurance and documentation fraud. The police eventually convicted him and gave him enough points to ban him from driving for a year and fined him £1,500 plus costs. The insurance company that he was with was one of these "we only cover really bad drivers," obviously did not pay out for the damage to the car. This was obviously another £1,500 or more. The insurance company paid for my bicycle damage, £550 once assessed by a local shop. This also paid for my clothing and helmet, £200, and my phone screen, £180. Then finally insurance company paid compensation for my injuries and time off, etc. Over £10,000 I'm guessing. I would have been quite happy for them to pay my initial assessment of my bicycle and phone damage, but they wanted to make my life difficult. It cost them thousands, got the driver banned, and resulting compensation was a massive bonus for my savings account. And fair play to you, obviously I can tell this is in the UK. Oh man, I don't know why people try and get away without insurance these days, it's just so crazy. And if anyone's wondering, yes, you can get bicycle insurance if you're part of a bicycle club in the UK. I'm pretty sure it's the same in the US as well, but yeah. Our next story is from Supercat21. $100 if you can hit me. Not mine, my dad's story. As a young 20-something, my dad was hanging out with some friends of his. His buddy says, "I got $100 that says you can't hit me from less than a foot away." Sounds like a stupid bet. Of course there's a catch. Buddy says he'll make it fair. They both stand on opposite sides of a standard piece of paper. Rules are simple. Neither man can take his feet off the paper. Dad agrees, so his buddy gets a piece of paper and sets it up in place. Trick here was that he put the paper on a doorway. My dad was on one side and he closes the door before he stands on his side. My dad says, smart ass thought he had me, probably pulled on the others before, but he forgot to check the door. It was one of them hollow interior doors. Dad said he punched right through the door into his buddy's chest. $100 well earned. And the cost of a door. Our next story is from Jumbo Face. Call the HOA because my yard is devaluing your house? Alright, I have it cleaned by the inspection date. This is a story of my mother's. She has always been incredibly hard-headed, but this sticks out a lot from my teenage years. Once a year, she always had us pull everything out of the garage. Lots of boxes. My mum has a concerning amount of possessions. So we go through it and clean it and reorganise. This particular year, the couple who owned the house across from us, house flippers, were in the process of selling their house. Unhappy with my mother's unsightly driveway covered in boxes soiling their good image, they made a call to the HOA. By the time my mother received the letter, the mess had been put away, but they decided to get her on a few other complaints, such as the bikes against the side of the house and the patchy gravel. She had 2 weeks to have everything up to standards. Petty and easily frustrated, my mother knew immediately who called, since the couple had come over and told her flat out with their renovations that they were selling the house for way more than any other house on this neighbourhood, and would appreciate if she respected that by keeping her property on par. For the next 2 weeks, every box from that garage was in our driveway. The couch and the living room TV came next. This was early summer, so it's perfect weather to just sit in your yard in your shorts and sports bra. My mum made sure to wave and smile every time they brought someone over for a showing. The final step comes to the end of the 2 weeks though. After the yard had been cleaned up and cleared by the HOA, my mum went to the local Walmart and bought off a sale sign. She wrote about a quarter of their ridiculous asking price on it and finished it off with a big "sold" written across the front and stuck it in our yard. No clue what they ended up selling the house for, but it sat empty for a while, so I assumed it was below offer. To be honest, if I saw a family just like all with their whole living room out in their yard, I'd be thinking, yeah, I want to be part of that family. And our final short story is from Emma Ha. I can only book over the phone. Okay. Super short one. A few years ago, I went to the doctor's to make an appointment. I had to go to the pharmacy next, so I thought I'd pop in instead of calling. Receptionist tells me that they can't take walk-ins. I didn't want an appointment then anyway, and can only take bookings over the phone. So I stood at reception, got my phone out, and called the number for the phone right next to her. I made eye contact with her the whole time as she answered the phone and booked me in. Oh, and that's my favourite, even though it's such a short story. Imagine just doing that, just looking at someone while you're making that call. Absolutely amazing. Once again, guys, a massive thank you for joining me. If you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe button, as it really does keep us pushing this content out. Much love, guys. Have a great day.